This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Hey, the vibes are slipping. I think it's time to bring out the Velveeta shells and cheese. The holidays are a time to go all in on indulgence. Headline your meals with the rich, creamy meltiness of Velveeta shells and cheese and satisfy your holiday cravings like no other. Bring that main course energy to your side dish. Celebrate extra with Velveeta these holidays.
The Twits are having good fortune on a black phone. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Adam Ball, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom.
Hello, and welcome back to another week of Off Screen. We are going to look at the Twits in a minute, Good Fortune, and Black Phone 2. But we're going to start, as we always do, with a little natter about the box office top 10 for this week in the UK. I will start, if you want, Van, at number 10. And it is The Long Walk. It's been out for 5 weeks now. 4,426,000. See, you're better at this number thing than me. That looks pretty good for 5 weeks for that kind of
That
movie,
is not
right?
bad for a Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's be real. I mean, Shawshank didn't make that when it opened. You know what I mean? It's a Stephen King adaptation. These things are not big money earners. And yet, arguably, The Long Walk is one of the better Stephen King adaptations. Not like on the grand scheme of things. Some of them are dire. Like, the Stephen King name is not the guarantee of quality that it used to be. And there are a fair number of turkeys if you go back through the history of like movies based on works of King. But I really like The Long Walk. It suffers only really when you start comparing it to things like Battle Royale, The Hunger Games, stuff like that. But I think actually owes more of a debt to Lord of the Flies. It has that great thing. And I think it fits. It's almost like the horror answer to Stand By Me, which was already in a sense like a horror movie in a very different way anyway. But this one, like literally Walk or Die, is a pretty good concept. Great performances in there. I keep wanting to see this a second time, and I've still not had the chance. I mean, I did get to see I Swear a second time, which I'm very happy about. We'll talk about that. I hope it's in the rest of the top 10. It's open in the next tab. Sorry, I can't see it. But I like The Long Walk. I was a very big fan. I would watch it again, definitely.
Okay, and yes, I Swear is in the top 10, so we will be talking about that in a minute. Number 9, The Bad Guys 2. So this has been out for 12 weeks, but 14 million.
Yeah, this is why it's still in. I can see why they're still keeping it in cinemas, despite the fact that it's on digital. Because if you've earned 14 million quid, hell, let it ride. I wish more films did this. I genuinely do. I mean, I remember when Fast X dropped on digital like 2 weeks after its theatrical release, and everyone starts whining about, it's not made enough money. Of course it's not made enough money. You put it on digital and took it out of cinemas. Like, I actually do think there is room to keep some of these things in cinemas. They will still make money. And a film like The Bad Guys 2, because it is child-friendly, it winds up getting, as we always like to say, it's the family trip and it's the birthday party crowd, and there's repeat business. Kids love this brand based on the sort of sales of the book. I think the film has appeal for adults as well. You will watch these one day, my friend. You're going to be made by the children in your life to watch both The Bad Guys and Bad Guys 2. And do you know what? You will not feel like your time has been wasted. I promise you will. You'll be like me, like, why am I just watching Ocean's 11, but it's animated? This is the strangest thing. And hats off to the 14 million quid, well deserved, I say.
All right, well, on to number 8 this week, Good Boy. It's been out a week, obviously, 230,000. I don't really know what to say about that one.
Yeah, it's a shame, because I would like this to have gotten slightly more love. But I think this is one that, in terms of its broad appeal, is going to find its audience on streaming, definitely. Because it is more of, it's horror movie with a gimmick. Like I say, we get one every year. Last year we had 2, because we had Strange Darling and the Slash movie I still haven't gotten around to looking at the title for. What is Stranger Calls? I'm sure it's In a Lonely Place or something like that. And I like this one, which is a horror movie just followed from the perspective of the dog. And I think as gimmicks go, this has done an immeasurable service by having an actual performance by by an actual dog, a dog playing a character. And it worked very well. Indy the dog might be my favourite performance of the year so far. I mean, it's between Indy the dog and Sean Penn in one battle after another so far this year. But I love a good performance. If a canine's going to deliver it, hats off to him. I'm just going to say I find it really odd that a canine's delivering a better performance than Leo in this week's top 10. So make of that what you will. Do see it, though. I think it's good fun. If you want something different for Halloween,
Put a cute dog in something, it'll always do pretty well, let's be honest, even if it is animated. Number 7, I don't think we've covered this, is Night of the Zoopocalypse.
I didn't know this existed until Friday night when I was in an Odeon watching I Swear for the second time, and the poster was there outside the bathroom. I was waiting for Faith to come out of the laser room. I saw this poster, I'm like, what the hell is Night of the... Is this a Zootopia spin-off? Like,
Zoopocalypse,
Yeah, it sounds like one of those animated shorts that Disney Plus puts out that's got like the characters from Zootopia in it. No, it's not. It's a completely random animated movie. I didn't know it existed. I don't think they press showed it. I think I got a press email about it that I didn't reply to because we had a full week. But don't know what to say about that one. I don't imagine it'll be in the top 10 next week because it looks like kind of a cheap and cheerful one. But I live for the surprise. So, I'm prepared to admit when I'm wrong.
It's made more than Good Boy, and it's been out the same amount of time, so...
I mean, more people can see it. That would be why.
All right, fair point.
People under 15 can see it. And you tend to take more than one person with you when they're under 15. You tend to take a group of children with you, so I can understand.
That makes sense. Number 6, The Conjuring Last Rites. It's been out 6 weeks now. 17.8 million.
Wait, it's been 6 weeks that this... Oh, wow, where did that go? I didn't realise it had been that long. Feels like about 3. I didn't like this. I thought this was a pretty garbage sequel. And the Conjuring series is one that I do hold in pretty decently high regard. Like, particularly the first 2. I think, there's a solid franchise there. But the spin-offs were the rubbish ones. Like, it was the reverse of the sort of Marvel movies in a way, where the main, it's like the Avengers movies were great, but the sort of solo movies were terrible. Opposite with The Conjuring. It's a very strange thing because the mainline series has gotten worse as it's gone on. And that's a shame because I like these performances, even though they're playing characters who really have no earthly business being, presented in this positive a light. Because remember, based on a true story, as they like to say. And if you're going to dine out on that, you might want to be prepared for people actually looking up the true story because it does not reflect the film at all in any way, shape, or form. But a couple of solid scares, but few and far between in a movie that really overstays its welcome, I think.
At number 5, The Smashing Machine. It's been out 2 weeks, and that's on 1.6 million. I don't think we've not covered that one, have we?
No, we were off that week. This is Dwayne Johnson really trying desperately for an Oscar. This is Dwayne Johnson, and I'm sorry, but he has stopped just short of actually sending out a tweet, "Look, I'm acting, I promise." Like, it's that level, and it feels really patronising. Like, the film itself feels really patronising. You're watching a film that is money for old rope. Like, it's the same movie you saw if you saw Southpaw. It's the same movie you saw if you saw Bleed for Me. It's the same movie you saw if you saw Queen of the Ring 2 weeks previous. It's one of those. You're like, I don't get... But also, it's kind of a bad movie in its own right. It's not wonderfully written. Like, to be fair. Like, it's just, we put Dwayne Johnson in makeup effects and then just had him play a Dwayne Johnson character. And I'm sorry, that's not enough to justify the existence of, Rocky But If by Benny Safdie, which is nowhere near as exciting as it actually sounds.
And at number 4, Downton Abbey, the grand finale. So everyone was going to love this, weren't they?
Yeah. I've still not yet. I've got a digital copy of this. Like, they sent me one through for awards purposes, and I've still not gotten around to watching this. We had the conversation before. I will watch it because I quite like the 2 Downton movies, even though I've never seen a single episode of the series. Like, my knowledge of Downton Abbey as a show comes from that one gag in Iron Man 3, where comatose John Favreau has to have it on in the background of his hospital room. Sorry, that's my entire knowledge of Downton Abbey, the show. But the movies I quite like, so I will watch this. I'm not shocked it's made money, though. That grey pound goes a long way, and I bet you folding money, if you check the highest turnover of ticket numbers on this would be like on a Tuesday when they do the OAP discounts. The ones where the OAPs get to see a movie for a couple of quid and they get a cup of tea and some biscuits with it.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say on a Wednesday when it's pension day.
Oh no, it's not. It's because the cinemas do the specific day where people over the age of retirement have to like present their ID or whatever, and they get like a reduced ticket, and it is I've been at them. I've seen films in this sort of setting, and they're a delight. They're an absolute. No one ever takes their phone out. It's amazing.
I was going to say that. I bet no one looks at their phone.
It's bliss, mate. But nobody, not a single phone in the audience. It's great. Nobody talks. If they do, it's usually people just being like, the person with them can't hear them, so they have to, But it's perfectly understandable. It's a wonderful climate to review. If you're on the fence about ever seeing a movie in one of these environments, absolutely, take it from me, do it. Do it. You won't get the discount, but you will enjoy the ambience. I'll tell you that much.
At number 3 then this week, I Swear, which has been out for a week, 1.1 million. Don't really know much about this one. I do. This is the one we reviewed. Yeah, of course it is.
The Tourette's one. This is the John Davidson story. I love this movie. I bloody love it. I do. And it's one of those movies that you can't talk about for too long. I genuinely can't talk about the movie for too long before I feel that lump in throat, because stuff starts coming back to you. We went back after we recorded our review last week. Faith and I went to the Friday night screening of the Odeon in Milton Keynes, and we sat in there, and this is a testament, based off what I just said, this is a testament to how good the movie is. There were 2 people sat in front of us in the cinema, rows apart, who took their phones out a few times. And they opened their messages and they started typing a response to this. In both cases, started typing a response to a WhatsApp message. And then within 10 seconds, something on the screen drew them in and they put the phone away. And this happened, I think in both cases, happened twice. Like they took the phone out, within a second, something happened, they put it away. I'm like, that's how good that movie is.
Yeah, like, and that never happens, really.
No, never happens. Both of us laughed and cried at the exact same space we did before. We loved the performances just as much. I love this movie. I think genuinely this is one of the movies of the year. I think it's a beautiful film. I think it's hilarious as well. I think the performances are terrific. I just honestly love this movie. If you're on the fence about seeing it, go and see I Swear. It's such a great movie.
That's at number 3. Then at number 2, One Battle After Another, which has been out for 3 weeks. That's sitting on 8 million. Well, 8.3 million. Not too bad for 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I can't bloody stand it. I think it's a boring-ass movie. A boring-ass movie that appeals only to the worst kind of broadsheet writing cardigan wearers imaginable. Every good thing you've heard about the movie is true. Like, every good thing you've heard about the movie, it is in fact reflective of something that's in the movie. But the fact that you've heard 36 million good things about the movie, and every one of them is true, should give you an indication of how overstuffed about this movie is. And because it's so overstuffed, it's about nothing. It's about everything and nothing simultaneously. Because if you're about everything, then you're actually about nothing. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. Like, it really leaves... And I'm not for it. I think, to be honest, this will go away. Nobody will talk about it. We'll all just get reminded of it when it gets nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay come the end of January. And then, and then we'll all have to feign surprise when it doesn't win Best Picture but does win the Screenplay Oscar because P.T. Anderson. I'm not enchanted by it. I do think that Sean Penn is very good in it, though, to be fair.
Okay, and finally then, number 1 this week is Tron Ares. It's been out a week, and it's on 1.7 million.
And it's pretty dire. It's pretty dire. It's so dire, in fact, it has now killed the Tron franchise. And do you know what? My friend Calvin said this best, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. And he said to me, as a Tron fan, if it took sacrificing this franchise to finally get studios to realize that nobody wants to watch Jared Leto, then I'm all for it. And I completely agree. I mean, I presume now that we've only got to make it through the He-Man Masters of the Universe movie next year, in which he plays Skeletor, to finally be rid of him. Because when that bombs, and it will, I don't care what anyone says, a He-Man movie will bomb, and the Jared Leto thing will make it bomb harder. And that'll be it. We will be done with Jared Leto. I don't think this is a good Tron movie. I don't think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a good video game movie. I don't think it's anything other than a good soundtrack. It's not even a good music video for that soundtrack. It is nothing more than a soundtrack with a screensaver. And at the middle of it all in the middle of it all is just Jared Leto sucking harder than he ever has in his life. And I say that bearing full well that playing a soulless, dead-eyed AI might be the finest role anyone's ever given him. But that really is painting with damned praise.
All right, well, there is this week's box office top 10 in the UK. We are going to move on to our first new movie. We're going to move on to a Roald Dahl special. We'll see what Van thought too. The Twits in just a sec.
Hello, Finney. Did you think our story was over?
Mr. Grammer.
This Friday.
You're dead.
Dead is just a word.
Critics are saying Ethan Hawke is pure nightmare fuel.
Oh, Finney.
Discover the secret behind the mask.
What do you think happens when you die? It's time to find out.
Black Phone 2, only in theaters Friday. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
Okay, then, welcome back to Off Screen. We're going to look at the new movie Good Fortune in a little bit. We've got Black Phone 2 to look at as well. But as I mentioned earlier, we're going to dive into a Roald Dahl classic right now and see what Van thought too. The Twits. So let me just double check. This isn't a remake? Or, like, what's...
Actually, no, because there's never been a version of The Twits before. As far as I know, there has actually never been a film adaptation of The Twits ever. As far as I understand it, because I was right. What is your favourite Roald Dahl book? Out of interest, everyone has one. What's your favourite?
Probably James and the Giant Peach, George's Marvellous Medicine.
Oh, I love George's I've forgotten about that one actually, George.
Yeah, that was my primary school book.
I don't think that's ever had an adaptation either.
No, it hasn't.
So, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a year or two ago, Netflix bought the rights to the Roald Dahl kind of estate. They just have the collection, they have the library.
Yeah.
And they can make whatever they want, like, that's within the canon. I think the only limitation they have is to do with Wonka, because Warner Brothers have the license, because obviously it's only a year since the Timothée Chalamet, about 18 months since the Timothée Chalamet Wonka prequels. I think that's going on with Warner Brothers, but the rest is all Netflix. Now, this is, I think, the first, other than the short films that got made a year or so ago, the SEO Trot, I think, something like that. I didn't really catch them. The short films got made with Cumberbatch a while ago. But other than that, I think this is the first actual feature effort. So, The Twits, just a public disclosure, this is my favourite Roald Dahl text. I love The Twits. That was my one when I was a kid. So the minute they announced that they were going to make a movie out of The Twits, my first response was, oh, hell yes. My second response was, oh, wait, but how? Because that, as you will know from having read Roald Dahl at a very young age, there's some stuff in a lot of Roald Dahl books that you can't really pull off in the 21st century. You know what I mean? There's some
There's
stuff
many.
There's a lot that hasn't aged well. You know what I mean? Some very outdated attitudes that found their way in, and we've had to deal with them every time there's been a Roald Dahl thing made. They've had to be dealt with. Now, that's a nice way of saying that this adaptation of The Twits is not a direct adaptation of the book by Roald Dahl. It borrows the broad concept of the Twits themselves and the sort of mugglewumps and you know, them getting the Twits getting their comeuppance. It borrows bits. Every major plot point from the book is in the film, but it's incorporated into a larger original story. Okay? So, wholly original story. So you have the Twits, who are, for lack of a better term, like an older couple. She is voiced by Margot Martindale, and he is voiced by Johnny Vegas. And they are the worst people who've ever lived. By the way, this is an animated movie. I forgot to say that, but it's like a CG animated. Looks kind of like something Del Toro would have done with Pinocchio. Kind of that style. So it's quite gothy at times, but other times it weirdly goes very Despicable Me. It's quite grimy and filthy in that very Roald Dahl-like way. So the Twits are horrible people. They have a failed amusement park they have tried to open up. It was a circus in the book, I think. They've tried to open an actual theme park, Twitlandia, in this. It's got shut down by the city for health code violations. And as revenge, they set out to basically ruin the city and make them pay by making the city smell of rancid hot dog meat, which is one of the things that the actual park got shut down for by the city. So they think, we'll make you smell of rancid hot dog meat then. And they do. And he's about 2 orphans who discover that the Twits are behind this, set out to expose them, and find themselves going into a blood feud, effectively, with the Twits, when it's discovered that the Twits, again, this is kind of in the book, the Twits own, or have enslaved, a bunch of the monkeys in the book. They are actually African monkeys in the book. In this adaptation, they are monkey-like creatures from Loompa Land, and in both versions, they're called Mugglewumps. Here, the Mugglewumps are used for their tears, which emit energy and are being used to actually literally power Twitlandia. And because the kids have exposed the Twits and had them shut down and had them ostracized, it also turns out they've made them into minor media celebrities because all of the quite hateful, seemingly quite right-leaning stuff that they say gets taken and co-opted by, let's just say, idiots who see them as sort of a political idealism and have them run for mayor, which the Twits do because this enables them to get to the Mugglewumps once the kids free them and hide them away in the orphanage. This allows them to use the power of government office to get to the orphanage and get the Mugglewumps back so they can power their crappy theme park. I mean, none of this has any social relevance in 2025 at all. I'm sure you'll agree. There's absolutely no relevance whatsoever to a story about bread and circus politics that adopts the idea of media manipulation of the alt-right. There's no relevance in the real world whatsoever for that story, as I'm sure you'll agree. Anyway, here's a clip from Netflix's adaptation of The Twits.
We are not like everyone else.
Once upon a time, there were 2 terrible twits.
We're one of a kind.
The twits hate everything, especially each other.
Worms! You're eating worms! You grizzly old grunion!
Turmoil tonight. The Twits declared war on some local orphan children.
Where are they?
We're all gonna die!
No one's gonna die, Harold. I am going to bring those jerks to justice.
Your no-good children stole our Mugglewumps.
My who stole your what?
I mean, this just sounds like a whole lot of fun with a great soundtrack, if I'm honest.
It is. I mean, that soundtrack's not in the film, obviously. There's not actually really any music in that way. There's a couple of musical numbers. They have, I think there's like 3 musical numbers in it. And it is specifically pointed out, no, this isn't a musical, but we are going to have a couple of songs. They literally say that to you in the movie, like in dialogue. Actually, because it's got a little meta streak. And for me, most importantly, it's got the griminess of a Roald Dahl text. Like, Roald Dahl did that. That was his whole thing. His stories were dark. I have always loved The Twits because it's just an awful story. Like, it's just a horrible story about the worst people in the universe. And to be honest, the entire point of the original text was very simply, like, we're just going to punish them because they got it coming. Which, as far as stories to write for children go, I think is actually kind of admirable. This obviously has to have some changes because it's a Roald Dahl text from 1980, so maybe doesn't play well 55 years later. You know what I mean? Like 45 years later, sorry. And I think they've done a pretty good job. As I sat there, and I think within about 15 minutes, I'd reached the conclusion of, oh no, this clearly isn't a straight adaptation. This isn't for me. Like, it's not aimed at me who knows the original story, because to be fair, I know Roald Dahl books are still read like to children by their parents, like some children in this day and age, but I know it's less of a thing than it ever used to. But I think there's enough of the original, like who the Twits are, for instance, that if you are like you and I, where you know the book from 40 years ago in your childhood kind of thing, you will still be like, oh yeah, I kind of feel at home in this. I get where I'm coming from with this. It's a lot like if you just done an animated version of Matilda rather than adapt the musical kind of thing. You have a similar feeling. But it has that griminess. And again, that Danny DeVito kind of home life bit in Matilda in the mid-90s was perfect Roald Dahl, and you look at the BFG, for even Spielberg's BFG, it is about that griminess. The story in there, I would argue, goes a little bit too Despicable Me at times, particularly when it gets to dealing with the orphans and the orphanage. Like, that stuff is a bit too saccharine, it's a bit too sweet, and when they introduce the muggle wumps and they're glowing and there's fairy dust, you do find yourself thinking, wait, did anybody tell the actual writers and directors of this that this was a Roald Dahl book? Because it feels very out of place. Feels very candy cane, sugar lump kind of thing for a Roald Dahl text. It feels very out of place. But then when it gets back into the actual plot and you start getting back into the bread and circus politics, it's like, yes, it's got the spirit of it through and through. And you know what? It won me over. It's got genuinely one of the best fart jokes you'll ever see in the movie. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, one of the all-time fart jokes in this. But of course it has. It's based on a Roald Dahl book. That's what Roald Dahl was all about.
It's all about the bodily functions.
Exactly. Roald Dahl was the guy that wrote poop jokes for 8-year-olds. That was his whole thing. That's why we love him. And then he gave everything silly names just to put the cherry on top. But it was a film that genuinely reminded me, both in its art design, its performances, etc., across the board reminded me, yeah, that's why we like Roald Dahl. That's why Roald Dahl will always be the legend that he is. That's why you can chuck out any old version of James and the Giant Peach, and I'll watch it. Because it's Roald Dahl. I need that kind of disgustingness. There's no one else does it. And the only thing I've ever seen come close to a Roald Dahl story is always Lemony Snicket. The Lemony Snicket.
Yes.
The only thing I can think of that compares to Roald Dahl in terms of that unique kind of Tim Burton but for kids vision. And yeah, won me over solid. I was a big fan of this, and I think if you stick this on for the kids this weekend, you'll sit down with your partner, you'll put this on for the kids, and actually you'll all have a great time in very different ways. The kids will just enjoy it as a kids movie. You will sit back and the pair of you will just be like, no, this is one of the most depraved things I've ever seen. I can't believe this exists. What are we watching and what are we exposing these kids to? Oh wait, it's Roald Dahl. That's the experience you'll have watching this.
It does sound like a lot of fun, and it's definitely going on my Netflix watch list. The Twits is on Netflix from now if you want to check it out. All right, still to come, Black Phone 2, and next we're going to look at the new Keanu Reeves movie, Good Fortune. We'll see what Van thought of that one. Stay where you are. So, hello and welcome back to Off Screen then. We are going to talk about Black Phone 2 to finish off today in a moment. But before that, we're going to look at the new Keanu Reeves movie. It is called Good Fortune. I don't know a lot about this, actually, but I am a Keanu Reeves fan, not just because I think he's a great actor, and I don't think I've seen him in anything that's been terrible, but I think he's a genuinely great guy in life anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't think... Is there anyone alive who would actually call Keanu Reeves a good actor? Like, I don't know. Is that...
I think he's great.
I love Keanu, and he's great, and I enjoy watching him in movies and things. But even as John Wick, which is the part that he's born to play, are we calling him a good actor ever?
On my standards, I've always thought he's a good actor. Or maybe he's just always been in good movies.
I mean, he is in good movies, give him that, and he is a charismatic presence. But put it this way, this is a movie that very much knows Keanu's limitations and plays into it. Right, so the premise here is we follow an angel, okay, played by Keanu Reeves. And he's not like one of the big angels. He's kind of a McJob angel. He's kind of an underling. He's given the crap assignments. So you know, like City of Angels, where they meet on like skyscraper roofs and things, and they have like staff meetings. It's just looks like a bunch of hippies having a conversation on a rooftop. Same thing here. It's very obvious Aziz Ansari took some influence from either City of Angels or the original Wings of Desire it's based on. And the idea is that Keanu's task, his only assignment as an angel, is he has to stop people from texting and driving. Right? He sits in the back of a car, and when people are texting, they can't see or hear him. He puts his hand on their shoulder just as they're about to hit a car, and they brake in time. That's his whole gimmick, right? That's his whole shtick. And obviously, he finds this really unfulfilling. He absolutely hates it. It's just because it's just the same stuff over and over again, and he hates it. And one day, he's in the back of Aziz Ansari's car. Aziz Ansari, who, by the way, has also written and directed this. We will get to that because I have a hard time with the Aziz Ansari of all this. And I think a fair few people did when we were going into the press show. This was the conversation everybody was having before we went into the press show on Monday. But yeah, Aziz Ansari is driving, he's texting, he's just been fired, all this stuff. His life is in the toilet. And he literally texts to his friend just before Keanu can tap him on the shoulder, texts, "I'm not sure life is worth living anymore." And to be honest, you can't. In the moment, you're like, "Yeah, I kind of feel you, bud." I kind of, given what he's going, it's one of those everything that can go wrong has gone wrong kind of days. He's like a gig worker, picking up whatever TaskRabbit kind of jobs or whatever Deliveroo jobs he can get on the fly. He's sleeping in his car, things like that. His dad keeps phoning him and talking about his more successful cousin Naveen and things like that. And Keanu Reeves, taps him on the shoulder and says some things, but he sticks with him. And he, is talking to the angel. Says, I want more meaningful duties. I want to save someone. And he decides, I'm going to seek out that guy. I'm not allowed to, but I'm going to seek out that guy. And just for like a bit of fun, just for a side project, I'm going to fix his life. Aziz Ansari has just been laid off by Seth Rogen, a billionaire who he has served as personal assistant to for like 2 days because he put a dinner on the company credit card. And in order to show Aziz Ansari that money and success won't solve all his problems, he swaps the lives of Seth Rogen, the billionaire, with Aziz Ansari, the fired personal assistant, only for said angel to quickly understand that, oh no, it turns out money and success actually can solve most of his problems. I may have read this wrong. What do I do? So here is a clip. This is Seth Rogen when Keanu Reeves can't figure out just how to fix this. This is him giving Seth Rogen his memories back and bringing him into the mix to help.
If you switch back right now, I'm going to give you $200,000.
You spent more than that on one of your watches.
Switch back, or you are evil, and this angel man will send you to hell forever. Smite him!
I can send someone to hell. That's actually not my department.
Good God, man, you were very unhelpful.
You fired me because I put like $300 on your credit card. Why don't you tough it out for a few days?
I see what's happening here. Eat the rich, am I right? You think because I'm a tech bro, I can't live your life for a little while? I can live your life in my sleep. I came from nothing. I'm self-made.
You came from nothing.
Oh, I came from very, very humble beginnings.
What'd your parents do?
My father was an orthopedic surgeon, and my mother practiced law.
I love the sound of this. Like, I want to see this now.
Right. The big problem with it is that if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the movie. It's one of those kind of thing. I hate when they do that. And they've done that really badly here, where the trailer is giving you a lot of the movie. There's very little, so there's actually no surprise in it whatsoever. But the writing of it, the performances of it, the performances within, are kind of so engaging and charming that they pull it off regardless. I have issues with certain things. Now, primarily, I think there's a sense of fear to the morality of the movie, which is the movie feels the need to. It starts out quite cynical and quite realistic, and actually, it's quite nice to see a film do this. It's quite nice to see, as I say, the movie in which it is literally said, "Oh, actually, it turns out that money and success do solve its problems," and actually, this idea that if you're just a good person, that life will work out for you is nonsense. And actually, who cares as long as you have money and success? And it's actually kind of refreshing to see a film be that outright cynical. The problem is that as soon as they've made the point and actually done it in quite an impressive way, the movie then feels the need to undercut it with, yes, but we're still a movie and we need to make this kind of a happy, moralistic ending. And they undo all of that and kill all of not so much good fortune, but goodwill banked by it to that point. Aziz Ansari is just playing Aziz Ansari. It's nice to see Seth Rogen playing something, I say, closer to his character from The Studio, but maybe a bit more aloof. And Seth Rogen's version of a nice guy, what he thinks is a nice guy billionaire, which is obviously a billionaire who doesn't realize that he's an a-hole kind of thing. Like, he thinks he's quite nice because he doesn't like raise his voice or curse. But in actuality, you're watching and thinking, oh, you are just a terrible person. Rogen actually is perfectly cast for that. But the real winner, as you point out, is actually Keanu Reeves, because what they've done here is they've cast Keanu Reeves as this character and played on the fact that Keanu Reeves is actually at his best when he is completely removed from humanity. Right? If you think about John Wick, right? The reason that he's so good as John Wick is because John Wick is not a person.
Yeah.
Right? You, in no way for 1 second do you believe that John Wick has ever stood in line at a Starbucks. You know, like, you don't believe that John Wick has ever had to go down the post office and deal with passport applications or anything like that. Like, this is not a guy that's ever had to do laundry. You know what I mean? The real world is not a thing that John Wick is part of. Right. What they have done cleverly, and this works on 2 levels as well. First of all, they've got him dressed as Constantine. Not the Constantine that Keanu Reeves himself played in the Constantine movie. No, the actual comics-accurate Constantine, which is bizarre. So he's got the John Wick hair and beard, but from the neck down, he is John Constantine from the actual Hellblazer comics and, you know, Legends of Tomorrow, which is kind of funny to me going through this. But he then plays it entirely like he is just bemused and absolutely impressed by anything humanity can do. There is a gag early on in the movie, before he does the money and success thing, where he shows Aziz Ansari what his life could be. You know, you've got so much to live for. Let me show you what your future has in store, if. And he shows him what to you or I, and Aziz Ansari's character, is the most mundane, ordinary, depressing, and actually quite stifling life imaginable. All he does is, like, you know, he goes on to live and pay bills and put his dog down, kind of thing. And Keanu Reeves' character thinks this is the greatest thing in the universe, whilst Aziz Ansari and we as the audience are sat there going, no, this is awful. Why would you want me to live through this? But Reeves' execution of it, in which is, look, you get to work for Amazon. That's an amazing... You get to pee in a bottle. Like, think, how convenient is that? With complete conviction. And it's one of those where you find yourself thinking, wait, is this like Jared Leto in Tron Ares, where you actually kind of think that there's nobody else in the universe that could pull this off the same way? Like, it's idiotic, but it might be genius that you got this person to do it. And that's kind of the true success of it. The Aziz Ansari of it never quite works for me, because he's still just playing Aziz Ansari. And I know that we should separate the art from the artist, but I'm sorry, Aziz Ansari is kind of a unique case. Once you start, I say, this was the one conversation we were all having prior to going in the screening room, which was, oh, really? We just forgive and forget on this. Okay, cool. Like, that's fine. Don't want to go back to that. I seem to remember reading that. I think it was The Atlantic that posted the original Aziz Ansari article. That article kind of lives large, but sure. It just doesn't help that he's really not extending outside of his comfort zone. In a movie that he himself has written and directed, he's actually the one that's putting in the least effort. And this is coupled with the fact that rather than add any distinct style to this, he simply filmed it in that way, which never quite works, where we're going down the indie dramedy route for what's effectively your version of Heaven Can Wait. Rather than film it in that broad comedy lives in a wide kind of mentality, he wants the art house Sundance friendly version. And I get it. I saw his Netflix show Master of None, which I didn't think was bad, to be fair. I think it's pretty good, but the whole thing with that was it was quite experimental. He's bringing that mentality to this, and I don't quite think it works. I think it may have been better being a bit broader and allowing Keanu Reeves to kind of indulge the mania just a bit more. Like, honestly, the movie's worth it just for Keanu. Like, you will laugh your ass off at Keanu in this, and maybe some Seth Rogen as well, but you're not going to be entertained for 1 minute that Aziz Ansari himself is on screen in a movie that he himself has written and directed. And that, to me, is kind of odd. Even if you take, you know, the art from the artist kind of argument, if you take that out of it, like, forget about the whole Me Too thing. Just as the writer-director of this, it is weird that he is the least developed person in this. His character arc literally takes 10 minutes, and then anything after that, he's just regurgitating a point. But, again, who cares? Keanu's a lot of fun in it. And to be honest, you had my ticket money just for that.
Well, you've made me want to watch it just to spot all these things that you've pointed out, to be honest, because it sounds like a complete minefield of little tidbits to take from you to then kind of watch out for and look for in the movie. But
there's a great moment in it, like I say, about how it makes a point but kind of bitches out on it, for lack of a better term. There is a point at which Seth Rogen, living Aziz Ansari's life, makes arguably the most profound point in the movie. But again, there's never any development of this point past that, which is, he simply says, I don't get how people live like this. I've arguably not got it that bad, and even I'm barely hanging on. How are people not peed off and angry all the time, like, and depressed all the time? You're like, yeah, we are, buddy. Like, we kind of are. That's how the real world works. And the fact that your writer-director knew to put that in the movie, but then do naff all with it, is kind of the issue. So, yeah, that's kind of the problem that underlines it.
Well, if you want to check out Good Fortune, you can, because it's now in cinemas. Right, one last ride then, one last movie to look at. We'll see what Van thought of Black Phone 2 next.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome back to Off Screen then for one last ride. We are going to dive straight into a supernatural horror by the name of Black Phone 2. And that's all I know. Literally.
Do you not remember us reviewing The Black Phone? It was 3 years ago now.
Well, that'll be why.
It was Halloween 2022.
Wow.
When The Black Phone dropped. Because I was really taken with it. It was an adaptation of a novel by Joe Hill, who, funnily enough, because the movie felt very much like a Stephen King story, well, it turns out that Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, so that kind of explains it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So the first movie was about a young boy, Finney, who was abducted. It's set in the 70s or 80s. I think it's the 70s. Was abducted by the local maniac kidnapper in a mask known as the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke. He was locked in a basement and there was a disconnected payphone on the wall. And he was getting phone calls from the previous victims of the Grabber who were coaching him through. We've now got a sequel a few years later because it was a decent little hit, The Black Phone. It was a great movie as well. But we've now got a sequel set years later in which Finney and his younger sister are now, in high school. They're living with the legacy of what happened in the first movie. He's viewed as, that kid who had that thing with the serial killer, and people like to kind of pick a fight with him specifically because of that. Like every wannabe tough guy kid in the school, I'm going after the little serial killer kid. Not all that. It's exactly that mentality. And Finney and his sister discover that their late mother had ties to a Christian sort of summer camp type setup that also itself had ties to the Grabber. And this coincides with dreams and visions that both Finney and his sister are having that basically encourages them to go. And no sooner have they arrived at this very snowy summer camp than the phone starts ringing, and it seems like the Grabber might just be back. So I've got a clip for you, and this is in fact exactly that. This is one of those phone calls.
Hello, Finney.
What do you want?
It took me a long time, but now I remember.
You're dead.
Oh, Finney. You of all people know that dead is just a word. Tell me why you're here. Why do you think I'm here?
I like the sound of this, but immediately I'm just thinking Scream because of the voice they've put on over the phone.
I mean, there's that going for it. I mean, to be honest with you, right, first of all, I have to just say, this is not a patch on the first movie. I've seen some absolutely glowing reviews for this.
Yeah.
And I can't quite reconcile what I watched with what I read in those reviews. Which is, you've got a movie that is it's got the style, don't get me wrong, but wow, are we talking about a very, very different kind of movie to what we got the last time. Now, it has got C. Robert Cargill and Scott Derrickson on the script. It's got Scott Derrickson directing, both of them returning from the previous one. But whereas you had that first movie, there was a psychic element to the first one. But it was still, a down and dirty, kind of gritty, reality-based kind of thing, ignoring the slight tinge of the supernatural. There was a slight tinge element of the supernatural. Here, what you've got, comparatively, is Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Warriors. And it really does not play the same way. Like I say, effectively made, and, acted very well. Mason Thames, was Finney in the first movie as well, has returned here. Obviously, in that time, has gone on to play, is it Puck in How to Train Your Dragon? The main character in How to Train Your Dragon has played him in live action, and has got, I think, Regretting You next week, sort of rom-com that's out next week. But this is kind of the role he's tethered to. Now, you've also got Madeline McGraw, who was the absolute rock star of the first movie, as the younger sister. She returns now slightly older, and I would argue she's given more of the plot to have hung upon her. And it doesn't quite work because she was the sort of psychic character, but she was not only a psychic, but also a sidekick in the first one. And as such, bumping her up to way more of a prominent player who's in the mix with Mason Thames, dealing with it, doesn't work the same way, especially when it then starts going into really replicated Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. Like, it really feels like you're watching a lesser Nightmare on Elm Street sequel that just weirdly happens to be very well directed. Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's a very weird thing that of all the horror franchises, of all the big, the main ones, the Freddy, Jason, Michael, all of these ones, none of them have actually done snow yet. None of them have done the one in the snow. Like, I know Paramount tried for ages to do the next one's going to be Jason in the snow. Like, they deliberately tried to do it, and it fell apart. It is odd. None of them have done but in the snow. And that's ostensibly what they're trying here, but they're taking it into, yes, but we're co-opting Nightmare on Elm Street's whole dream gimmick. And I didn't care in any way, because when it's dream stuff, you're not psychologically involved in anywhere near the same way, because all bets are off. The rules don't add up. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you need to because ... dream. And I felt that all the way through. I just don't care. I did like the supporting cast. I like Jeremy Davies as the dad. I like Demian Bashir as the sort of guy running the camp. I thought he was quite a good sort of supporting player in this. But I just didn't connect with this in any way, shape, or form the way I did with the first one. The first was visceral. It was tense. It was involving. This, to be perfectly honest, like I say, that one felt like an adaptation of a Stephen King book. Even though it was written by Stephen King's son, that makes sense. This, by comparison, feels like an adaptation of a point horror novel. And yes, I'm aware that's a very old school reference to throw out. No one ever talks about point horror anymore. And by the way, studios, if you're so determined to adapt only established IPs for the rest of the history of cinema, I'm just going to throw it out there. There is an entire library of point horror novels sitting on a bookshelf in every one of your basements, just waiting to have the rights bought. I'm just putting it out there. I would kill to see R.L. Stein's The Babysitter adapted as a series of films, even if it is just on Netflix. But the problem is, if you've adapted something that feels like a Stephen King adaptation, you can't then follow it up with what feels like one of the point horrors that was written by someone other than R.L. Stein. One of the crappier ones. Because that's what this feels like. It just happens to be really well directed and have really good cinematography and a really good sense of location. And finally, against all the odds, actually take one of these characters in the snow. And I felt really let down by that. I think because the bar had been set so high by that first one. That first one is great. I recommend it to anybody. One of the best horror movies of the last 5 years, The Black Phone. I really love it. But I think The Black Phone 2 is crap. I mean, I know they're trying. The performances I know are there. Madeline McCraw doesn't quite have the shtick down in her slightly older years that she did when she was like a tween. Because I think she had to be about 12 in the first one, and now she's kind of like 16, 17, and the character thing doesn't quite work the same way because she was kind of an awkward goofball in the first one, and in this one you're like, well, clearly, like to every other 17-year-old in her school, she'd clearly be like the hot girl in school. Like, how does that reconcile with this? I'm not quite getting it. But it's very much one of those where it's like, I don't think you thought this through, and what you've delivered just feels like a lesser point horror adaptation. And I say that as probably the only man alive that really wishes they would actually make point horror adaptations.
Well, you never know. Someone might be listening, Van, and your wish might come true one day. Well, Black Phone 2 out in cinemas from today if you want to check it out. But be warned, it's not as good as the first one.
No.
Okay. So, movie of the week. I think I know which one you're going to choose. I think you're going to go for Good Fortune. Prove me wrong.
I think it is. I mean, it is between the Twits and Good Fortune. I think Good Fortune, even though its trailer, as I say, absolutely ruins the film for us. If you can avoid the trailer, do. But do see Good Fortune. I thought it has some charm.
Right then, let's have a quick nosy at next week. What have we got coming up? Regretting You.
Yeah, that's the one that Mason Thames is in from Black Phone 2.
Yes.
Yeah, this is sort of his rom-com thing he's doing with, I think it's McKenna Grace is the love interest in this one, but it also stars Alison Williams as well. So, you've got my ticket money. I love Alison Williams. We've also got Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere.
Yes.
The one where it's the dude from The Bear. Jeremy Allen White from The Bear.
Yeah.
He's playing Springsteen in this one. I don't know. I'm not really. Are you a Springsteen guy? I'm not really a Springsteen guy.
I'm intrigued by his life. I think I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of his music, a Springsteen fan as such, but I think his life was quite an interesting one, and I think that's the part that I'm interested in here.
Well, we shall find out if it is an interesting one next week. We've also got the documentary Love and War next week, and Tessa Thompson in the biopic Heather to round out the week as well. I mean, to be honest, the biggie is obviously Springsteen, I think, next week.
It looks that way, doesn't it? Well, we'll see what Van thought to all of those.
It might be an awards contender. It's that time of year where if you're releasing a music biopic, in mid-October, late October, odds are you think it might get some Oscar love. Go into it next week knowing that it's quite clearly going to be meant to be an Oscar contender.
I have a bugbear with those though, because I always feel like they should be posthumous.
I agree with you to an extent. I don't think we should involve the people while they're alive, but I will argue that Elton John also kind of proved to be the exception to the rule in that one, because nobody in a million years thought Elton John would go as hard on himself as he actually did.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That worked. Well, that is, of course, all we have time for this week on Off Screen. Until next week when we return, I've been Adam Ball.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall return.
This podcast is part of the Mercury Network. To find your next favourite show, like mine, 5 Random Questions, visit mercurypodcast.com now.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.